So moving on to that, so the arthritic and joint disease, what are we looking for in terms of a diet for those type of dogs?
So what is very important if we talk about osteoarthritis is weight management. So these animals should not gain weight, preferably, especially if they are already a bit overweight or have a tendency to become overweight. Mm-hmm. So if they are overweight, we have to start a weight loss program. That's step number one, because the inflammatory response, which is happening when adipose tissue is growing, so if you accumulate fat, will also worsen the inflammation which is present during osteoarthritis. So we have to stop that process by just stopping the accumulation of fat. So that's an important one. Another way to modify the inflammatory response is with long-chain polyunsaturated omega-3 fatty acids. Mm-hmm. And those are fatty acids that are derived from fatty fish, for instance, or from algae. You also have like vegan sources for that. But it comes down to the fatty acids EPA and DHA. That's a shortage of very complicated names. Yeah. But these fatty acids really have a sort of anti-inflammatory reaction. So they slow down the acute reaction and they kind of resolve an inflammatory response within the joint. Yeah. And these fatty acids in scientific studies have really proven to be effective to reduce pain and to reduce the inflammatory response, but also to reduce the breakdown of cartilage, which is part of the pathophysiology in osteoarthritis. So that's one. If we then talk about the cartilage and the quality of the cartilage consists of collagen and of glycosaminoglycans. And that's another difficult term, but it's like sugar structures, sugar and protein, which form a sort of a sponge. And the fibers are collagen, they hold the sponge, but the rest of the sponge is filled with these glycosaminoglycans. Yeah. And it works like a sponge, so it can absorb forces that are put on the joint. So it withstands those forces without damaging the underlying bone. So it's a protective layer, and if you want to slow down the breakdown, because that's what's happening with osteoarthritis, you can give substrates for those glycosaminoglycans. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, glucosamine and chondroitin sulfate, which are components that are often used in osteoarthritis diets and also in supplements for people. I know even in some countries it's even considered a drug, but in most countries it's still regarded as a nutritional supplement. But these are building blocks of cartilage. And you can give them as a repair or as a substrate for the cartilage degrading enzymes. Yeah. So you slow down the progression of the breakdown of cartilage. The downside is that the cartilage which has been damaged just because of overstress on the joints or because the cartilage gets older and more brittle, so it more easily gets disrupted. This repair cartilage is always of less quality compared to what it was. So at a certain point, this layer will get thinner and thinner. And this is a process we cannot stop, but we want to give substrates or foods that try to slow down this response. Yeah. If we look at those components, there's not really much evidence for it, despite the fact that a lot of people are using it, both for themselves and for their pets. So there's some contradictory evidence, but it seems that it's doing something. If you look at what we call meta-analysis, so if you combine all the studies together and then look at the good quality studies, so that evaluated on the long term, at the right dosage, proper outcome measures they use to evaluate the quality of the effect, we can see that there's a little effect. Yeah. The effect of omega-3 from the studies we have is much bigger than from glucosamine and chondroitin. Yeah. And you can also give collagen, which is another building block.